And we should be live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another beautiful episode of Those Are Biscuits. I'm one of your hosts, John Scott, and with me, as always, the frigid-hearted Owen Adams.
Didn't you already say frigid once?
Probably, dude. I'm winging this every time.
Oh, really?
I'm kind of like looking around. I'm looking around my room, like trying to figure out, like, okay, is there anything I can pull from here? And I'm like, well,
the fridge. Are you streaming from your kitchen?
No, it's just cold. That's why.
It's just cold.
Like, in front of me is a Gordon Lightfoot album. So I was just like, I don't know.
So you were the Gordon Owen Adams.
With me as always, sundown, you better take care. Owen Adams.
How you been, Jonathan? How are you?
You better take care.
I've been noticing a disturbing trend, by the way, in our shows.
Oh?
We have been consistently saying all the funniest things before we start the show. I don't know if you noticed this. It's a growing problem. Because then the show begins and we're all tapped out. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, what's worse is that all the funny stuff we said before the show isn't even things for this show.
No, it's funny stuff for another show.
Yeah, for a theoretical show down the line.
A top secret project, which we should... Yeah. I think we could probably say you guys at home should be seeing something to do with this within 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Right, I would say.
Yes.
Possibly.
Absolutely.
Possibly, probably.
I think that's a possibility.
But other than that...
Well, Chicken Lisa says, how dare you? You have to let us in on the fun.
But you know, I will say, in this specific case, it's less fun and more like ritual, ideological torture and pain expressed through humor. Should we announce? Is this worth announcing, or should we wait till we have a little down the line? I don't know. Should we discuss it?
Yeah, let's announce it. Let's announce it, and because that gives us more of
a deadline.
Yeah, a deadline and a reason to continue, right? Right. So we don't back out, you know.
So John and I, we used to do a podcast, and it became a live talk show. But we've been kind of for a long time itching to get a project back in works that is more of a pre-recorded thing that we can talk about a little bit. And if you saw us talking a couple of weeks ago about the adaptation of Atlas Shrugged, the 3-part epic science fiction movie that all your kids want to see, we got chatting about it and we decided we would do a podcast where we would watch it and discuss it. And this is kind of going to be our new show. We're kicking around titles. We're calling it Badaptations right now.
Yeah, that's our working title.
And what we're going to do is we're going to look at movies that are based on other things. Because that gives us a lot of scope, but also kind of a focus. So we could cover everything. We could do, I don't know, I'm doing Assassin's Creed on the channel. We could do the Assassin's Creed movie. We could do the Lord of the Rings. We could do all the Marvel movies. But it also leaves us true gems like Atlas Shrugged, which John just watched for the first time. And we're not going to talk about it on the show because we just talked about it a little bit too much. But that is coming soon, so we're going to record that. We're going for something a little bit shorter than this, a little bit more focused, but hopefully still very, very funny. So that should be coming to this channel here soon.
Yes, right here. Right where you're at.
Well, shall I do an E3? That's available on the store right now! Except it's not. Don't go looking for it.
Coming to the
She's
Americas.
Not there.
Q3.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm not looking forward to some of the movies we're gonna have to watch.
No, me neither.
I'm gonna deliberately try and get some good ones in there.
Yeah, don't get us wrong. We're not shooting for nothing but bad, right? Because I mean, there's other outlets who do that.
We're gonna try and pick all interesting.
Right.
Like I was thinking of some movies I would like to do. Just kicking around ideas off the top of my head earlier today, and I'd like to do some comic book movies, but rather than like
I'm not doing it. I'm not.
No,
I'm
no.
not.
I genuinely, I think you'll like this suggestion. Rather than doing stuff like all the MCU movies which we talked about on the show, I would like to do lesser known movies like The Phantom is a movie I like.
Mm.
Kind of forgotten, not great, not amazing, but still
About
kind of
like-
interesting.
What about like Tank Girl?
Yeah, or The Shadow, the Alec Baldwin one.
No,
You don't like that movie?
no one does.
I like it. A major plot point is a colorblind Ian McKellen. Charles.
Charles.
But it would also leave us stuff like I don't know, would you consider so here's the difficult thing. Like, I think we would have to rule out remakes, right? Of movies. I don't think we can consider a remake to be an adaptation of a movie, right?
Right.
But if it was a remake of a movie that was also based on something else, you know what I mean?
Okay, so that being said, how would we handle things like Apocalypse Now, right?
Right, which is
That's-
sort of Heart of Darkness adaptation, but not quite.
Right.
I think we consider it just because it's a good opportunity to watch Apocalypse Now and talk about a good film.
That's a rough one to watch again, though. Like,
Tell stories about Brando.
Those are one of those movies that you watch it the first time and you're like, I'm good. This was a great movie, but I think I'm okay now. Like,
Right. It also leaves you other stuff like, how do you handle a movie like Adaptation, which is ostensibly an adaptation of The Orchid Thief, but is a transformative work about what it's like to adapt a book like The Orchid Thief, you know?
right, and also at the same time a mini autobiographical take of Charlie Kaufman.
Right.
Yeah.
So the truth is, these are all very weighty questions we'll probably completely ignore in the show. We'll be doing like Street Fighter, Street Fighter, the Killing Joke animated movie again. No, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. So what are some adaptations since this is a way of talking a little bit about the show without killing our material, what are some movies that you think would be interested to do once we're done with Atlas Shrugged? Bear in mind, we got 3 Atlas Shrugged movies to do. I don't know if we're trying to get those in 3 weeks or if we should save them.
No, I think we discussed that at one point. Like, I think it'd be kind of fun to do as an anniversary thing.
But won't the impetus of the narrative be... Sorry, I couldn't finish that sentence.
Let's see. I was thinking about this earlier. I would like to do some, like, for me. Okay, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh,
I would like to do some like the reimaginings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you guys don't know, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is a reimagining of the Odyssey by Homer. Very loose, but the elements are there.
Yeah. I think what I'd like to stay away from are things like Jurassic Park, which is like so much more famous than the book ever was, and is like its own entity now, you know?
Right, because I don't want to get to a point where we're going through these movies and like having to at the same time trying to like educate anyone about the source material. You know what I mean?
Right. I'd like it to be at least one of those things where it's well known as an adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think it'll be interesting. It would, but what I like about it is it gives us like a nice focus for the topic, but it does leave you like a broad space. Like, I think one thing that's gonna be fun to try and do is maybe always try and get a different source material. So like, first episode is gonna be a novel. Next episode, it'd be nice to do something maybe like I don't know, like Beowulf, an adaptation of a an old public domain poem, you know. And a comic and a game and all that stuff. And a TV show. Were there any movies adapted from TV shows that are worth it? The Brady Bunch, maybe?
I mean, like, there's like Dark Shadows.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be an interesting one. So yeah, that's coming up. We haven't even picked our second.
Well, I mean, Mission Impossible.
Yeah, true. That is a good one.
True. Yep. Yep, out there.
Sadly, we can't go the other way, so we can't do all the TV shows based on movies. Can't just watch Buffy for a podcast.
Nor would I want to. I'm not a big Buffy fan.
Yeah, I'm sure there are also quite a few Buffy podcasts out there, you know?
Right.
But there's some weird ones based on TV shows. Like, do you know what would be an interest we want to talk about specifically in relation to how different it is from the source material? Because it is in subtle ways. The Naked Gun. Which
the police files.
Police Squad, yeah.
Police Squad, excuse me, yeah.
Which I think was... I love those movies, but I think went from being genius on TV to being kind of a lame movie, you know?
Yeah.
But, yeah. That's a show we're doing. we just talked about it for a minute.
We announced it.
Enjoy an extended ad.
Right.
How you doing, John? What have you been doing since the last time I saw you?
Christmas?
What are you talking about? We saw each other like...
saw
you.
Yeah, you didn't see me.
I'm sorry. What have you been doing since the last time we spoke?
Well...
Jonathan Pedant.
Okay.
Sorry, did someone just turn on the laughing gas?
Bad. I went and saw a community theater production of the Hobbit musical.
Oh, see, do you know, I thought you were going to say something like we could get our teeth into, like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, or...
I tried. I really tried to see that, but the theater closest to me that I was going to go see that fucking ended to run early.
No, isn't that like the most successful movie at the moment?
Yeah. They ended the run. And like I'm no joke, like 2 weeks after you talked about it on the show, they ended it. They ended the run at that theater.
Wow.
Yeah.
Weird.
They replaced it with Vice.
Oh, wait, don't you want to see Sam Rockwell pretending to be Dick Cheney? Isn't that just...
No, that's Sam Rockwell pretending to be W, and it's Christian Bale being...
Oh, that ruins everything. The other way around, I'd be sold. No, actually, do you know what? Do you know what movie I'd go to see? Dick Cheney playing Christian Bale, and George W. Bush playing Sam Rockwell. I'd watch that.
Here, Dog Trainer 123 says, "Hey Owen, this is Smart Dogs. Unfortunately, my Gmail got hacked. I got my Gmail back, but I'm still working on getting my YouTube channel back. Everything is deleted, unfortunately."
Oh, that's terrible. Good luck.
I'm here too.
Now all I can think about is Dick Cheney going, "You want me to turn down your lights?" Here I can see as you walk around going, "La da 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 da."
He's good for you.
Good for you. Nobody talks about that in relation to Christian Bale anymore. It's sad.
Well, because I think like the public opinion has changed on it. Like I think most people are kind of like, oh well, it's understandable, I guess. You know, it's one of those weird things where just out of the nature of it being on the internet for so long, people's like perception of it has changed.
I don't know. I think he just did good Batman films after it.
Like, oh, what a dick. But he was a good Batman.
What I want to know is, where's the tape that one day hopefully we'll find where he's doing that in the Batman voice? Good for you!
It's distracting.
Yeah, it's fucking annoying. I'd never get the trigger, so it has to do with citizen. Hello to Sinister Minister, how you doing?
Yeah, how you doing? Dr. says, how is everyone today? I'm doing all right.
Yeah,
but no,
I just checked.
I went to saw this.
Sorry, I just want to say, I just checked. That was 2009 that happened.
Yes.
And The Dark Knight came out 2008. So I think it was just that overlap. The Dark Knight just became huger and huger. And we forgot.
So I saw this community play, and I'm not going to harp on it too much because it's community theater. It's a bunch of kids who are up there. You get what you get, right? But one of the things they did, I almost fucking died laughing in the theater. I really had to do everything I could to stifle myself. So I'm watching this play, and I'm basically there for two reasons. One, I have ties to the theater, and I try to show support whenever I can.
And two, you fucking love The Hobbit. You're like a Hobbit fiend.
I really don't.
Hobbit man. Weren't you in a production of The Hobbit once as the Goblin King?
Yes. So that's why I wanted to see it. I was like, oh man, I remember actually having a good time doing that. We really went all out with that performance. Like we really went all out for it. We had this crazy we built a Smog head to use as like a giant puppet. We fit 2-3 people inside this thing to
you try to tell
it.
me you didn't actually selectively engineer and breed a dragon? Lazy.
Right. Well, here's the thing, right? So we did all of this, right? And when we did it.
Uh-huh.
This time around, I'm gonna say that there wasn't quite that much effort put into this performance.
No giant Smog head?
What's that?
No giant Smaug head?
No. So this is why I had to stifle myself from laughing. Is I'm watching this and it gets to the scene where Bilbo, confronts Smog, or vice versa. He has the ring of invisibility on.
Right.
And so what happens is Bilbo's walking around, all of a sudden like a spotlight comes up behind the person on the curtain, right? So there's a blank spotlight. And then all of a sudden you see emerging from this dragon shadow puppet.
Okay. That's not, I could see how that could be effective.
Sure, but it wasn't a very good one.
Are you talking like little flat marionettes?
No, it was like a paper
hands?
cutout.
Oh.
It was like a paper cutout that someone held in front of the spotlight.
Did it move?
It moved it back and forth to try to line up with the speech.
Wait, did it have like a moving part, like a pinned piece of card for the mouth, or was it just?
No, I think the mouth did move, right?
Okay, yeah, okay, I get it.
Right. But the person controlling it was like way into it. So as
that's
Smog
always better.
So as Smog speaking, this fucking dragon is just flying back and forth across the spotlight, right? Because he's trying to make it look like the head's kind of bobbing with the speech, but it's just whipping around like 90 degrees left to right as he's talking. So it would kind of be like, I'm gonna try to. In real life, it would have like a weird Doppler effect, So it would, in real life, it would have sounded like, "Who here is in my cave, and what are they doing here? And I see you, tiny hobbit." And
was that the voice too? I see you, tiny hobbit. I am a dragon.
Well, to be honest, the person who did the voice didn't really have a lot of gravitas to their voice, no real bass.
Oh, nice.
So
one of those nasally dragons.
So the person really kind of it like to kind of quote Eddie Izzard there. He definitely had a kind of a hello kind of feel to it.
See, I'm now picturing it just like Jerry Lewis in The Nutty Professor. You know what I mean? Oh, no, there's hobbits getting in again.
Hey, lady! Oh, hey, lady!
Boy, I guess I better see the dean.
Let's see here. Dog Trainer says, how can I find this on Twitch/Mixer so I can at least appear as Smart Dogs? Oh, are we multi-streaming?
Yeah, we are. We should be.
Okay, you can find us on Mixer, which is mixer.com/not biscuits. That's probably the easiest one.
But every time you mention Smart Dogs, I just hear the Smart Guy theme in my head. But dogs, remember that? He's a smart guy.
Oh, yeah.
But Smart Dogs.
Yes. He's a smart dog. Da, 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 da.
That's a callback and a half.
Oh, we can get theme music again with the new show.
Oh yeah, well I thought I'd use some like Kevin MacLeod public stuff this time, so we don't get in troubles.
Right. When the guy who's been dead for 100 years has a copyright claim against us.
Do you remember when we tried to dispute it because they'd identified the wrong one? So we were like, "You've identified the wrong one, and it's actually this," and they filed a new copyright claim for that. We used to have some lovely theme music for this show. It was like 1930s jazz. And then it got replaced by some other 1930s jazz because apparently we picked the wrong jazz song. Wingy Manone and his orchestra's gotta get his cut.
It really sounds like a weird like Yu-Gi-Oh match where it's like, I cast copyright claim. Ha! You fell into my trap card. I cast, you have the wrong one. Aha! But that triggers my hidden card. Here's the new copyright claim. Fuck.
At least we don't have like Nintendo music in it. Though that would genuinely cause a problem. Yeah, well, you know, it was strange because we kept that music for a long time. We never actually got to the point where we uploaded the new song to YouTube, so I don't know if that one would have got copyrighted. But it's legitimately hard to do. So I'll deliberately find some royalty-free ones for that. It's gonna be interesting to just have a show again that's gonna be edited and stuff. It's gonna be a weird process. So, how did it end for Shadow Puppet's Maug? Because he gets shot with a big arrow, right? That's the Hobbit.
How they do, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. In this one, they just, I can't remember if this was part of the script or not, but they do like a weird alteration where they suggest that Smollett has one weak spot on his like chest.
Right, yeah, that's a known thing, and then the guy fires the arrow from the tower. Or, well, that's how they do it in the movie. But that's a known.
Okay, so they do that, but in this one they have it so that Bilbo stabs him with Sting in that spot. He tricks Smaug into rearing up on its hind legs.
Okay, that works.
Yeah.
How do they do that with shadow puppets?
So, as the poor girl who's playing Bilbo, what they have her do is just go, ah, and like run across the entirety of the stage with the sword out, just going, ah, runs off stage, and then the person holding the shadow puppet just shook it back and forth, going, no, and like slowly descended it.
That's pretty funny.
So here, Ty Bessinger says, if I didn't recognize the unusual spelling, I'd really have to worry about the content of tonight's show. Hello, Biscuiteers. Oh, that's a good name. I never thought about that. The Biscuiteers.
Ty Bessinger also says, maybe you two should compose a ukulele duo for the theme song. Do you know how hard it is to sync up music
You've
over the
heard
internet?
us try to sing on this before.
We'd have to compose it live, and then I'd have to record the ukulele track and send you the stuff to add vocals. I can't sing. Like,
wait, why am I singing?
Well,
I can't sing.
Yeah, there we go. There's the biggest problem at all.
Bad-tations. Bad-tations. Bad.
See, John can't even get the title of the show right.
Oh yeah, bad-tations. Bad adaptations. There we go.
Yeah.
Bad adaptations. Bad adaptations. Bad adaptations.
I think we should do the whole show in game show voices. It's Bad Adaptations, the show where we start the bad adaptations from the good adaptations.
Today we have Atlas Shrugged. It's basically propaganda.
And our special guest, the corpse of Ayn Rand. I'd take it.
Yeah.
Sinister Minister says I can almost play drums and bass. At the same time?
Like, I can almost run a marathon, except for those, last 25 miles. Best you can say. It doesn't need words. Oh, it does now.
Yeah. Bad adaptations, da 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 da.
Maybe we change it up by season, you know? Hark, bad adaptations, hark, bad adaptations, hark, bad adaptations, hark, bad adaptations.
Heart bad adaptations?
I said hark, bad adaptations.
Oh.
You know?
Oh, like do 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 do
Yeah.
do 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 do. We should make it like apocalyptic. I feel like we should have an intro and it should be like that KFC advert when they ran out of chicken and they came back with that like just lights, you know, you at the end of a corridor with lights approaching you, walking down and slamming a cane. I'm stood on a mountain looking over a city. And it just goes on for about 26 minutes of just shots, random footage, and like in a world where civilization is on a thread, and it's like footage of Brexit and all that shit, right? And Trump and like nukes and people trying to cross the border, all that. 26 minutes of footage, and that just zooms in and it just goes, bad adaptations, Atlas Shrugged. And then there isn't enough time. We go for a half-hour time slot and we discuss for the last 4 minutes what the film's like.
It sucked.
Boo, 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 and it just kicks in again. The whole intro plays in reverse.
Well, no, it should end with like a jug band, you know, for I don't know. Just
Is that what you took do to be?
It's like, I'm kind of into the jug band thing now.
We should just do a podcast about jug bands. What's your favorite jug band, Jonathan?
You know, that one.
Tiny Bazooka says, "Oh, the Baby Shark version, baby jug band do."
Objectives and do.
I like the idea that, you know, like when you first start to play like guitar or an instrument, there's always that period where you're learning your technique, you're really awkward and stuff. I like to imagine there's a bit when you first learn to play the jug where there's a lot of like changing of different levels of water in between notes before you realize you need more than one jug. You know what I mean? Like that's like the awkward teething period, you know?
Or the part where you think you've really mastered it, so you're going to try to like you know, get wild with it, do a throwing a solo where it's not supposed to be, do a little jug improv,
like the Hendrix of the jug band. He's found a way to like bend notes by by high pressure air over the top. He's got like
just light the fucker on fire.
He's got like a cafetiere lever. He's changing pitches on the fly, like woo, like a slide whistle jug. I want this now. Give me this jug band.
I want an electric jug. You know, he's worked out the feedback and everything. So
it's just pickups wired into the shallow bit of water on the bottom, just like electric sparks and stuff. Just a tip: don't spill any water. What?
just don't accidentally spit. Don't.
Yeah, just make sure your mouth's really dry before you start blowing onto that. The moisture from your air will form an arc that will send a long current up there.
Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
I like the idea that he's got like the full background, the full backing of the Jimi Hendrix Experience, you know.
He's not even trying to actually play the notes. You know?
That's why it'd be great if there was someone, you know, like Bob Dylan, like halfway through, like a Rolling Stone, if it just come on and do that thing every kid does when they first get a harmonica. Wee, 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 wee. Oh, this is what I want now. Musicians in well-established songs playing their music like beginners, you know? Like,
there must be some kind of way out of here.
Hold on. Let me change the water. Ooh. Okay, I need to put a little bit of water back in. Ooh.
Wait, I got it this time. Play the intro again. There must be some kind of way out of here. Yeah, got it this time.
Nailed it. I'd also like a Dream Theater one where when the solo kicks in, it's just a guy going bum, 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 bum. The Dream Theater Jug Band album. It's just John Petrucci with a fucking giant like giant like terracotta glazed jug. I'm running out of breath now.
Like, I want the Rush version, but Neil Peart is the jug.
Is the jug?
He's the jug player. So he has just like
let's
fucking jugs all around him.
Let's go back to Neil Peart is the jug. All the other he's just stood with his head like at a 90-degree angle, open.
And there's Getty just
blowing over his mouth. Wait, are you making that joke? Are you doing the noise, Neil? You don't do the noise. I provide the pressure that makes the noise. You just open your mouth and try and open your throat so we really get some resonance. Okay, here we go.
And you're really falling behind on the rhythm bass.
Yeah, keep playing while we go.
I don't know why it made me laugh so much. The fucking Dream Theater shit.
I think they'd be into it. The Dream Theater Jug album.
Okay, I'm back. I'm composing myself.
Sinister Minister says it's truly musical tonight. That's what I want. Dream Theater with a jug band, a jug, and like everyone else on like Jew's harp, you know? Boing, bida, boing, bida, boing, boing, boing.
It's funny. Time Buster goes, OMG, that was actually in sync. First time for everything. And she goes, so Sinister Minister, I can't tell if you made their band or not.
Sinister Minister says, you can't hear it, but I'm programming a drum machine to keep time to this. I feel terribly mean about this because there's some really talented jug bands out there.
Yeah.
But they're not funny.
What's funny thing too is somewhere in my mind I actually confused Dream Theater with Dream Academy. So in my head I'm thinking jug band, but life in a northern town.
I think this is great. No, I think this could be good. I think more bands should have instruments like that. Or like, you know, like a comb with a piece of paper over it.
What were we talking about?
I have no idea. But you know how like Queen, they keep replacing Freddie Mercury with like different singers, and it never quite works. Like we've had Queen and Paul Rodgers, remember?
All right, one second. Hello, Frankie from a while ago.
Hey, hi Frankie. Sorry, we missed you. I don't want to see Queen and any more great singers. Just get some good singers. But then like when Brian May dies, right? Replace him with guy with comb and a piece of paper. Tonight I'm gonna
Princess of the Universe.
Here we belong.
Fighting for survival. Don't make it be my equal.
But they have to completely big it up. The same way they do with like Paul Rodgers and stuff. They have to be like, yeah, for years Queen topped the music world in songwriting, recording, and sales. So it's only fitting that we are matched with Alistair Binky, the world's finest comb and paper artist. This man does for comb and paper what Brian May did for the guitar in the 70s. He even made his own comb and paper. He's like refining papyrus in the back behind stage. Like, he's like shucking cane
on stage.
Like, hold up. This will be about 3 hours while it dries.
This is sound check. No, in my head was even better. It's going to get to a point where Brian Mays is like, unfortunately, the arthritis doesn't allow me to play guitar anymore. But I picked up the comb and paper. So it is just Brian May up there, just.
Everything I do is driven by you.
It's Radio Gaga.
And like, Queen's been through equally embarrassing things without Roger Taylor dropping out. So he's still up there. You know what I mean? Like, he's
still in it.
Do you know when he sees that the audience is still turning up, he'll switch to the comb and paper too. And then after a while, it'll just be the two of them. No singers. No.
Like he's playing the rhythm. The rhythm paper comb.
He's like, 30 years ago, I wrote this song, Radio Gaga, about my love of the golden age of radio. It is my great pleasure, 102 years old, to be here playing my song with you now. Take it, Brian. He's like, unfortunately, there's a problem with Radio Gaga. We can't do like the hand motions and play the comb paper. So just
we invented this thing that goes around our necks.
They've got like the Bob Dylan clips.
Yeah. Hi, Best Secret says, so, how many years have you been doing this show now?
4, if you can believe
4,
it.
yeah.
4 fantastic years. Nothing but high quality.
See, now all I can think about is like other bands doing these stupid instruments, like ZZ Top. They spin around,
with the jug band and all the water falls out. Shit. We need to fix this.
On back the Grange.
Double back again.
I'm just looking for some tush.
One on the jug band, one on the comb. But alternating.
Where's
Critics
your comb?
call it Top's most ambitious album yet.
Where's your comb? I lost it in my beard.
I
I don't know why he suddenly became John Lennon in my head.
I lost it in my beard. It's funny because I think Yoko would be into the comb.
I think she is a comb. Like, I'm pretty sure she swallowed one. And she just never got it out.
Have we talked about? I'm sure we've talked about the video before where he's playing Johnny Be Good with
The floor.
with Chuck Berry. Have you seen this video? Oh, John, I've lost you. No, we've lost Jonathan. I'll entertain the troops by talking about this video a little bit till John gets back. There's a great video, and I can't remember if we talked about it before on the show. But John's beeping. Hello, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the show. Drop in, say hello. This is a podcast.
Hey,
John.
I'm back.
John, you're back. Have we talked about this video before where John Lennon and Chuck Berry are playing together?
Yeah, and Yoko Ono.
Halfway through the song, she just starts screaming. And it cuts to Chuck Berry's face, and he's like, what? And then the video goes on. And the next time you see her do it again, but this time there's no audio, and you realize someone's cut her mic. It's really funny.
And oddly enough, John Lennon is not upset with this.
And Chuck Berry's holding this big pair of scissors. Like,
what?
and then afterwards, they had a lengthy conversation about what it means to play a guitar like ringing a bell. Mind you, Chuck Berry should have written a song about a guy who could play a jug like he was ringing a bell.
I was gonna say, like, oddly enough, you can play a jug like ringing a bell.
Deep down in Louisiana, across the New Orleans, we're down up in the woods among the evergreens. There stood a log cabin made of earth and wood, where lived a country boy named Johnny Be Good. Never ever let you read or write so well, but he could play the comb and paper like he's ringing a bell. Yeah, Johnny, one day your name will be up in lights. I'm saying Johnny Be Good tonight. I'm picturing that the audience coming in, you know, like Carnegie Hall. I've heard amazing things about this Johnny Be Good. Why is there jugs, a ream of paper, and a barber's kit on the stage?
Why is he breathing into Neil Peart's face?
Who's Neil Peart? Anyway, we came here to see Johnny Be Good.
How do we know who Neil Peart is? We know.
Johnny Be Good's the real star.
You know what, Neil? Why don't you rush along? Hey.
I feel like this joke would have worked really, really great with Peter Frampton, but I don't know any Peter Frampton songs.
Let my love open the door. Oh no, that's Peter. Fuck, that's not Peter Frampton. It's
Peter Fuck.
No, who was it?
Pop star for the new generation.
That was Pete Townsend.
You thought the Beatles were edgy? You thought the Rolling Stones were edgy? You thought Elvis would embarrass your parents? Now listen to our new star, Peter Fuck. But all he does is like slow, soppy ballads. You know what I mean? He does like really gentle, sweet, family-friendly music. And like, you know, Peter, this is really not selling as well because parents are afraid to like buy kids your albums. Maybe it's time to consider like a professional name. Never! I was born a fuck and I'll die a fuck!
It's the fucking way!
My daddy gave me this fuck and I'm gonna keep it!
Like, welcome to the stage, Pete Fuck.
Yeah.
Comes out just covered in leather and studs, and then he grabs the mic. Just, why do birds suddenly appear?
Pete, your music's so wholesome. The parents love it. but you're just not getting any traction on the radio because they can't even say your name. Why? Why have I been cursed with this unsolvable problem?
I mean, most people actually change their name for
Why
radio.
must I be forever Pete Fuck?
No, listen to me. People change their names to be more radio friendly.
All right.
Wait.
I shall be Alan Fuck.
Fine. I will reinvent myself. I am now Pete Shager in the ass. Pete, my man, come on.
Pete Anal Seepage. After my maternal grandmother.
Pete Santorum, my favorite politician.
Come on, no, look, you can't have any bad words. All right. I shall call myself after my great-great-grandmother. Pete, gonna steal your kids. No, that's worse. Pete, fuck it is.
Okay, I got it. All right, clearly there's a problem with a part of my name. I will go and change it. I'm now fuck McFuck.
Yeah, I do like the way that was going down. Okay, look, Mr. Fuck. Like, there is just a problem with your name, and he's like, what, Pete?
Was it a slur or something?
I won't be offensive. Well, fine.
No, the Pete's fine. You sure? I'll change that.
I mean, yeah, I'm not attached to it at all. It's fine.
I mean, to be completely honest, I'm not a big fan of Pete. Like, I'm kind of looking for an excuse.
Well, no, it's not the Pete. Well, I mean, nobody's gonna know my middle name. Steve.
I've changed my name to Rich. I'm now a rich fuck.
What if we just changed the spelling so it was like Fuch, and then people would, like they would pronounce it how they want to pronounce it, and we could be. Wait. I don't understand. Is there a problem with the?
I mean, I thought we were focused on the Pete thing. I think you guys are getting distracted. Focus. We really got to figure out this Pete business.
No, we gotta knuckle down.
I want to be a star.
Or should I say, fuckle down? Because my name's Pete Fuck.
That's me. Fuck. Time Messenger says, you guys must have understanding neighbors. I just don't care.
Same.
Since Mr. says, now the spoon solo. Oh, God. Didn't we have a long argument about the spoons at one point?
Vaguely, I remember that.
Yeah.
There we go. A new one for our cast of characters. Pete Fuck. Happy to change his name. Not overly attached to Pete after all. He could go along with, what was his name? Johnny Clean Dick. I haven't thought about him in a while. I remember the name. What was it? Johnny Clean Dick. Cares a lot about hygiene, but had really filthy hands. That was... I think that was the concept, right? I don't know why. That one stuck in my mind.
The other way around or something like that. Like, he had the most filthiest dick in the world.
No, because his name was Johnny Clean Dick. That wouldn't make any sense. If it was...
Oh, yeah, because Pete Fuck made a whole shitload of sense.
Look, there's a logic to this. You can't just say any old shit and expect it to be funny, Jonathan. You gotta have an underlying reality that it all comes back to.
Look, the biggest laugh you and I have had in the last, 2 months of doing the show was the idea of fucking Jug Dream Theater, okay?
I think the biggest laugh we ever was just Snow having really long, self-deprecating and insecure album titles.
Snow Jug Band. Informer. Bum bum down.
I jerk your bum bum down. Hello, my name is Snow.
I just choked on my own spit.
Is that the next line? Hello, my name is Snow. I just choked on my own spit. But enough about that. On to the album name.
Which is still going, as you can see.
I got a little distracted.
That was just a little joke.
That's the next evolution. He starts writing like little informal back and forths.
Just commentary within the title.
Right. I'm hoping that, excuse the pun, I can inform you in the content of what this record will be.
See, that's funny because my major hit is Informer, even though I have moved on artistically.
Definitely. My mother says I haven't, but I have. Shut up, Margaret.
No, I'm over 40. I can call you Margaret now. I don't have to call you Mom.
I've changed the name Margaret from my actual mum's name because I don't want to identify her. Shut up, Mavis. Oh, shit. I didn't mean to write that.
It looks like I informed you of her true identity. By the way, my big hit name was Informer. You remember that? I just mentioned it a few lines ago. You can look up if you want.
Here are a few URLs with some information about the song Informer.
It's the whole URL too, so it's HTTP colon
and it's from like a really long, weird databasey website that goes on.
/search query.
Right, and like shitloads of indecipherable numbers. .php.
It's like when you want to link someone in like an Amazon listing.
Right.
You get those massive links.
And of course it's not clickable because it's an album cover, so you just gotta type it in. But he's copied it from Microsoft Word, so it is like blue and underlined.
Although he clicked it once, so it's now purple. But because of all the weird symbols in it, at a certain point, it doesn't recognize that that's still part of the...
Right, so it breaks halfway through and just becomes black again and not underlined. I don't understand why that previous link didn't work when I clicked it, but...
What if you just Google for this term? You should be able to find it. It's the third entry down on the 12th page.
If you're based in the United States. Other reasons I'm not sure about, because I can't afford a VPN right now.
See, I'm Canadian, so you have to go to google.ca.
It's not even funny. It's not even funny if you don't explain it in the context of it all being on an album cover. But we didn't explain that because this is a callback to a joke from like 6 months ago. So the only people enjoying the show at this point is you and me.
I mean, it's pretty much how it always is. We were going to talk about the Fyre Festival.
Yeah, this is better than the Fyre Festival.
Yeah, clearly. There's actually entertainment. Like,
were we going to talk about the Fyre Festival, or were we going to talk about the man who was going to suck a custom officer's dick?
I mean, we're absolutely going to get there.
Because I mean, when he first said it, I thought he was like being metaphorical, but he wasn't, Jonathan. He wasn't.
Okay, let's actually get into this.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
All right. So what we're talking about, I'll explain until John gets there. John and I watched the same documentary, and I have to just thank John for this, because he told me he was watching it. And it sounded interesting, but he was selling me on it enough that I went away and I watched it, like, that day. And it was fantastic. Now, there are actually 2 documentaries that came out the same week about the Fyre Festival. One is on Hulu, and one is on Netflix. I don't have Hulu, so I couldn't watch the Hulu one. I had to watch the Netflix one, which was fine. Have you seen the Hulu one, Jonathan?
No, I haven't.
I hear that one's a little bit more about the, like the the long-term effects, if you know what I mean, and the people.
Okay.
So I hear they complement each other quite nicely. Which is good, because it would be a shame if there were two out and they were basically all the same material, you know?
Right.
I will say, I wasn't aware of Fyre Festival before it happened.
Mm-hmm.
This document, I was aware of it when it unfolded, you know, but I wasn't aware of it, like, I didn't know it was coming, you know? But I have to say, this documentary shows a lot of that early promotional material. And right off the bat, that island is beautiful. Like, that is one of the big takeaways from this documentary is that the Bahamas must be amazing, right?
Right. I mean, and that's this kind of funny thing, too, is like, so there was okay, well, I'll remind me to bring up the like poor guy who won tickets to the show.
I will.
All right. So how this goes down, right? For those of you who don't know, who haven't heard about this story, is there's this guy named Billy. I can't remember his last name, honestly.
I do, because I thought he looked like Seth MacFarlane, so I went to check if they were related, but it was spelled differently. It was Billy McFarland.
Okay. So this Billy guy,
This Billy guy.
this Billy motherfucker.
Billy Clean Dick.
Billy Clean Dick. Him and... So he has this business venture, Magnesis.
Right.
Which also is kind of a weird scam.
Right. It's a sort of a credit card / loyalty card for ridiculously, disgustingly rich people, basically.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Although none of the disgustingly rich people in this documentary want to admit that they're ridiculously rich, have you noticed?
Right.
They all talk about it like it's perfectly normal. Like, oh yeah, it's a card where you get to participate in like community events and get to know New York. It's a card that lets you go see J. Rule at a very fancy club. It's
right, like you're like drinking wine with Beyonce, you know? It's just
unbelievably exclusive product, and they advertised it like it was like going to the youth center or joining the YMCA.
Right. So he has this venture, and through this he gets to know Ja Rule, and they're going to start this other business called Fyre. Now, the original business premise behind Fyre is actually kind of a sound idea, right? It's basically Yelp for booking talent, right?
Right. An online talent booking app where you can sort bands out and get reviews and do it all automated the way apps are.
Right. Which I mean, it's still for the wealthy, right? But it's a way to basically subvert the basic booking industry as it is, right?
And by all accounts, the app and stuff was great.
Mm-hmm. So the Billy guy gets it into his head where he wants to like really promote this app, and he wants to just really push it over the line and basically break into everyone's market. And how he thinks he's going to do this is by throwing this massive luxury music festival. Like, we're not talking about your Bonnaroo or your Coachella or your Lollapalooza or nothing like that. He wants to throw specifically a luxury music festival. And he bills it as such, a luxury music festival. Now...
Right, and this is an interesting premise right from the start, because music festivals are kind of grungy affairs, you know?
Right, yeah, and that's usually what they kind of base themselves on, are this idea of, hey, we're all going to get together for the music, man, and we're just going to be like little...
Kick about in the mud and see your favorite bands. Mm-hmm. And this is even if you're rich... Yeah, this is partly the appeal of a music festival.
Right, and that's kind of one thing like that people always like laugh about, like Coachella, because the Kardashians go to Coachella and stuff like that, but they always try to make themselves out to be like these bohemian, girls and stuff just hanging about. And it's like, no, you're leaving the festival grounds and you're staying in these like amazing like lodgings, and you're going, oh, I'm a festival girl. Shut up. This one was supposed to kind of like do away in a weird way with some of that pretense. And like on paper, this festival actually sounds like a decent idea if you're rich,
Right. there are events that exist primarily for rich people.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, and I got nothing against that.
the viability is judged on that. You know, the idea of a music festival where you go away to a music festival and you stay in nice tents, and it's not like slumming it, but you have to
Right.
pay for the not slumming it, is in itself not an unworkable idea.
Right. I mean, everything about this actually seems like it could work, right? On paper, all their
Well,
basic plans. Okay,
I will say there's one fundamental plan that didn't seem that well conceived right from the start, and it's holding it on a private island, not just in the
Right.
Bahamas, but on a private island. Because there is one moment that might be my favorite moment in the whole documentary involving that, and we'll get there.
Right. So the first thing that goes wrong, all right, the first thing that goes wrong with this whole thing is that they're like, we are going to put together this amazing promotional piece, right? This something like 15-minute long promotional piece where it's going to be nothing but the best supermodels in the world in bikinis running around on this beautiful island with all this really fancy, graphics going by, going Fyre and come experience all this sort of stuff, right? It's this, really well put together promotional piece. The problem is that the island that they're holding this on is Norman Key, which is famously was Pablo Escobar's island that he trafficked drugs through. And
Yeah,
the guy who owns the island now says, yeah, you can have the island for like a year or something.
Oh no, they had a full freehold lease. So technically they were leasing the island. They didn't fully own the island, as they said. Otherwise there wouldn't have been conditions. But they owned all the land on the island as much as you own it when you buy a piece of land to put a house on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, real quick, Loose Corner says, hey, everyone just got done playing the 30-minute demo of Resident Evil 2 Remake. Heard it's good. Do you like it?
Yeah, I've heard good things about that.
Yeah.
It seems to be getting a lot of attention for a remake, actually.
Mm-hmm. I heard it's really,
cool.
really well done. But so anyways, back to this, okay?
Yeah.
So they have some stipulations. Or they have stipulation. A stipulation, right? Where it goes, whatever you do, do not use Pablo Escobar's name, right? We were trying to change the image of this island, and we want to disassociate it with a drug kingpin, right?
Reasonable request, I would say.
Yeah. When you watch the promotional video, like the very first thing it says is like, come to Pablo Escobar's island.
Once owned by Pablo Escobar.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it boils down to this. Hey, can you not use Pablo Escobar's name in this? Oh yeah, sure, no problem. Come party on King Cocaine's fucking island. Let's go. It's like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah. So they immediately lose the island. And
like,
this is one of the best bits, because this goes to this kickstarts their next plan, which is to rent out space on an island in like the center of a building site, and then show an artist rendition of that on the website, on the map, without drawing anything else, so that their site looks like an island.
Right.
It's really funny. But there's a bit while they still had the island, my favorite bit in the whole documentary.
Was it the pilot?
When he says, he basically, because the pilot is basically the guy who's doing a lot of the infrastructure planning too, and he basically says, look, on this island, there isn't room for all the people you want to, you're selling tickets for. There is not physically room for this many people on the island. So we're going to need some overflow. What we'll do is we'll hire a cruise ship, a full-on, big, beautiful cruise ship, and some of the events and some of the accommodation will be on the cruise ship rather than on the island. Therefore, you'll always have a percentage of people who are on the ship, not on the island. Pretty good plan, relatively speaking. And then he basically says, the only problem with this is, and there's this great meeting where, after he just explains that the cruise ship is basically necessary for this to work at all, he says, you see him in this meeting and he's saying, okay, so one of the big issues is basically going to be, how are people going to get back? You know, we're going to have an issue with people late at night, they've been drinking, things like that, and they're going to need to take a dinghy back to the cruise ship. And the guy just goes, we're not doing the cruise ship. And you see him laugh, and he's like, no, I'm serious, we canceled the cruise ship. And in the next step, he explains, no, we need that cruise ship, and they fire him.
Right. Now, here's the best thing about this, right? This pilot slash logistics guy, right, has the most reasonable plan that this thing has, right? Through at that point, when he says we need this cruise ship to handle overflow, that right there marks the last good idea.
Right. It never hits that level of credibility again.
Right. It never gets that good. Now here's the
what's really amazing about it is what's really entertaining about it though is for the rest of the documentary, it's clear nothing has worked, and yet no one seems to be aware of this. Like, well, they're all aware of it, but no one ever slows down or changes trajectory at all.
Right. What makes me laugh, right? So this is this guy, right, who has the last good idea, right, is also the same guy who earlier says, "Oh, I'm a pilot." Yeah. I trained on Microsoft Flight Simulator.
He does have his license, though.
Yeah, he does have his license, but he basically says that I learned how to fly using Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's really good.
He does sell it. Luz Connor says if they had to market that island with the name Pablo Escobar, they deserve the consequences. The funny thing is, it's a beautiful island. Like
they don't have to use that name at all.
Right. It's one of those things where, like, are rich 17-year-olds even going to know who Pablo Escobar is?
Well, maybe, because, like, Narcos, that was a really popular show.
Also, to be fair, like, Paris Hilton heiress-type crowds, they do a lot of coke.
Yeah. Maybe they're all thinking, maybe there's still some left.
Right, maybe we can get Pablo back. Can we... maybe we can get it back, scope out the island. Return him.
That would not seem unreasonable for this whole thing. It's like, I want Pablo Escobar back. He's dead. I don't care. I want solutions.
Absolutely.
We're not a problems company. We're a solutions company.
That's a direct quote, by the way.
Yes.
You really should see the documentary for yourselves, by the way, because we're going to talk about this. We couldn't even cover like 10% of the crazy shit.
So... And by the way, it's called Fyre, the party that never was, or the
greatest party that never was or never happened, something like that.
Yeah. But if you search Fyre, Fyre on Netflix, you'll find this. So we get introduced into this cast of characters. Basically, you have Billy, who is running this whole thing. Okay. He's a leader. His second hand, or his second in charge, I can't remember his name, but he's like this really Weasley looking dude with like glasses and like slick black hair.
They basically establish he's never run anything.
Right. He's never done anything like this before, but he gets tapped to head this up. Then
there's the investor, who really has faith in Billy. Like, he thinks he's basically a financial genius.
Yeah. Are you talking about the party planner guy?
I'm talking about customs lubricator.
No, so he's actually an event coordinator.
Is he?
Yeah. So
but he was also an investor, right?
That's why they actually... He knows Billy because he's worked with them, and he thinks he's very good.
But he supplies a lot of the funding. There are many occasions where he basically comes in with funding.
Right.
And I'm fairly sure it said he was an investor in Magnesis. Like, he was on board because he was an early investor. Mm-hmm. He's incredibly rich, I know that much.
Yeah. So we get this guy, right? Then we get this one guy who if there's anyone I kind of feel the worst about, it's this one guy who is what he does is music festivals, right?
I will say I feel very sorry for anyone from the Bahamas.
Yes, of course,
before the Fyre Festival people. Anyone who actually lives there, because they go through the worst. I mean, that woman.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's That's a rough story.
So, but there's this one guy who I guess I don't know exactly what he does, but his thing is music festivals, right? He sets them up and everything, but he's also like a yoga instructor.
Yes. He seems to have many roles, because he's the guy who basically explains, I'm gonna have to do, like, I came to do this, and I ended up doing this, 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 and this.
Right.
Or I ended up going over here to do this. The other people I feel sorry for are the ones who work on the app, because they end up doing a ton of shit they weren't originally intending to do.
So this guy, right? So he's one of the guys who I sort of feel bad for, but I also don't, because basically everyone involved in this at any time could have walked away. But they all had these like huge payouts being held over their heads.
Right.
So at one point you're like, okay, like why didn't you just walk away, right? Why didn't you like stop this? Why didn't you do something, walk away? But then you remember, okay, they all have huge amounts of money being hung over their head. Like, could you honestly say that you in their position would walk away, right?
Well, one of the interesting things about the documentary early on is it very much establishes that Billy likes to overpromise money. And promise to, like, he thinks throwing money at things will solve everything. And he also thinks there'll be a limitless amount of money to come in to solve these problems later if they can just get the festival landed. Right. But he has underestimated that, because the thing about this guy, the Billy McFarlane guy that I think is really important, is his other big venture, Magnesis. That's the kind of thing that you can set up if you already have a lot of money, but it doesn't really take work. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's not a complete and total hard work, logistics, all day long job.
Right.
And what he doesn't realize is that, and this becomes more obvious as the documentary goes on, setting up a music festival, even if it was just your grungy Glastonbury out in a field somewhere musical, takes an extraordinary amount of money, time, and hard work, no matter what level you're at. And he actually
logistics. That's the most important word, is logistics.
And he actually doesn't have any experience in this area, but he thinks that just throwing money at it will solve it. And in the end, just throwing money at it causes more problems than it solves.
So, I think I sold this to Owen was while watching this. I have never in my life, I've been part of things that have gone horribly wrong, right? There's been events at the place I work at that have gone horribly wrong that I've had to participate in doing my job. I've been, working with the theater. I have been involved in things that just where everything went wrong, one right after the other. I have never ever in my life seen something like this where everything went wrong and everyone saw it going wrong and no one did a damn thing to make sure it went right. And so, okay, we're at this part where they're setting up, they're starting to work out where people are going to stay, right? So the first thing that happens is they can't get the tents they originally wanted to, because the tents that they originally wanted were way too big and there's just not enough space. So what they get their hands on is this surplus of extra hurricane tents from the last hurricane that went through the Bahamas.
They're these little round tents.
Yeah, these little tents.
They're quite durable and they're quite nice relative to some camping tents, because they're supposed to be tents that families might have to live in.
Right, and survive a hurricane.
But the people who booked accommodation booked luxury villas.
Right.
There is a moment, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I will just say, when that all comes to fruition and the guests start to take their accommodation, this documentary becomes a horror movie.
Yeah.
There's a moment where a guy seems to actually have PTSD as he relays what it was like. because it's that moment where they ask where the villas are, and he just says, if you booked a villa, go find yourself a tent. And chaos erupts as everyone tries to get in one of the tents. There's that guy who outright says, we didn't want neighbors. So...
Yeah, okay. So I want to talk about this guy. This guy made... Okay, of all of this shit that's going on, right? Of all the people who are part of... Of all the people who are setting up this festival, this Billy guy who's a piece of shit. His little second-in-command guy who's a kind of a piece of shit. There's a lot of people who are kind of pieces of shit. And there's people who are not necessarily pieces of shit, but they're kind of motivated by greed. So you're also not great people.
Right.
This guy, right, who is an attendee.
It comes out of nowhere, right?
He somehow comes off as the worst human being on the fucking planet, right?
All I can say is
it's Hitler, Stalin, and then this guy.
All right? I can say is it must have been such a terrifying experience. They were desperate to keep people away, like to be as favorable as possible. But what he says is, we didn't. I don't think he meant it like this. But the exact phrase he uses...
absolutely meant it like this.
The phrase he uses is, we didn't want any neighbors.
Right.
So we went into the tents around ours and cut the beds and pissed on them.
Right. So at this point, everyone who's attending this festival, the realization has clearly set in that, oh shit, we are stuck on this island for possibly 3 days. All right.
By the way, there's no luxury villas.
Yeah, there's no luxury villas. We've been scammed.
This is the
luxury villa.
This is the stupidest thing Billy does, by the way. This illustrates his complete lack of logistics. Mm-hmm. Saying to a group of people who've just got off the plane and don't know what they're doing, don't know what their accommodation is, have no idea where they're going, go find yourselves a tent. It's actually the single greatest bit of ignorance in the entire documentary, I think.
Right. So what happens is all these people are now realizing that they're stranded, right? And he goes, yeah, just go find yourself a tent, which immediately sets off mayhem, right? People are freaking the fuck out. So they're now scrambling to try to find tents and accommodations.
And they're looting the supplies. There's that guy who's like, I saw a woman carrying a pallet of toilet rolls. There's a bit, though. This goes on for ages, right? He's explaining this. And then everybody's trying to find their tents and find a place to sleep. And everyone's panicking. It's all madness, right? And then there's a bit where a guy, and he's like, it's practically looking at the camera, and he just says, and then when it got dark, any camaraderie there had been was gone.
Yeah.
And it is like Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now. I have seen horror.
Yeah. And then, so there's one guy though, right? So clearly everyone's in this really horrible state. And this guy, right? He goes, we didn't want neighbors, right? Not anything like we were scared or we were worried about things. He's like, we just didn't want to be around anyone because we wanted luxury. Proceeds to, destroy all the tents around him, piss on the beds, and whatnot. It's like, you are the biggest piece of shit in the world. Somehow, you managed to become, and you're an attendee, right? You're not even you're not even responsible for this shit show, but you somehow made it worse.
I like the story of the woman on the bus who's like, oh, what are these? It looks like some sort of survival camp. Are we just driving through here? And then the driver of the bus goes, nope, this is it. And you can tell, they don't go into detail, but you can tell from the way they're describing it, the driver on the bus is fucking loving it.
Yeah. So okay, this is where I want to bring up. We'll go back and we'll talk about some other tidbits here. So this wasn't in the festival or in the documentary, but this is something I read about previously. So there was apparently this guy who won tickets to this.
Yay!
Right? He won tickets.
I won!
Plus the airfare, plus all this sort of stuff, right? it does also happen that this guy is not rich. He's a pretty standard dude, but he also spent a good portion of his life like camping and being an outdoorsy kind of guy. Like he did like the whole backpacking through Europe and camping, and he's a more rugged guy. So he said that he had a great time at the Fyre Festival because he shows up, immediately assesses the situation, how terrible it is, hunkers down, and starts, basically using his abilities, his skills as being a more outdoorsy guy, while simultaneously watching all these people lose their fucking minds. He was having a great time.
It's such a great documentary. The story that most people have cottoned onto it, and it needs discussing.
Yes.
There's a guy. He's a nice guy. I think he's also like, he doesn't seem to have any malice in him. But I would say he doesn't seem maybe this would be an insult. He's successful, so maybe this is wrong. He doesn't seem that smart. And I don't mean like he's slow or anything. I just mean he is also quite clearly in like a rich person bubble. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he's come to the conclusion that Billy McFarlane is like this genius. And by the way, even a small amount of footage and time with any information about Billy McFarlane is enough to get across to you that he's not a genius.
No.
Billy is not a genius. He's rich.
He's not a genius. Well, he's charismatic.
Right.
Everyone says that. That's the one thing that everyone says that like falls in line, is that he's very charismatic.
Pardon me, burping in the mic there. But of all the Billy like enthusiasts, gray-haired investor guy's probably like, he's Billy's #1 fan, right?
Right. He's way on board the Billy train.
And he gets some kind of shitty situations over the whole length of the documentary. Like there's a moment where it's all completely gone to hell, and Billy apparently like comes to him begging, saying, "Could you please fix this?" And I think wasn't it his guy to his idea to get the tents, if you know what I mean? It was something like that. He's involved in those kind of decisions late in. But mostly he's like the money guy. But there's a bit where they establish, like, I think it's just before the guests start arriving, right? That they don't have any water, and they were supposed to have bottled water.
Right.
And then there are some crates of water stuck in customs. I will just say, by the way, no matter how much water it was, by the sounds of how much there was held up there, couldn't have been enough for everybody.
No.
But at first, you're not quite sure if he means it the way it sounds, right? But he says...
Well, they do this great thing about leading into it, right? Where they first talking to this other guy. We're like, oh yeah, what's this we hear about... I think his name was like Peter or something like that, like about Peter in the water, and the guy's like, nope, I'm not telling that story. So you're like, oh shit, what happened? Right?
And he says, and it's Billy who says it, right? Billy phones him up, and he says, and the way they're talking about it, it must have been a serious request. Like, you can't imagine that it was anything other than a metaphor, right? At first,
right.
But he says, we need to get this water out of customs. Could you go down to like the customs office?
Right.
Basically,
well, he establishes like, you're our big gay leader. We need you to help. Right. So,
and by the way, like, I don't know if this guy is gay. By the way, like, they've never established.
I think he is, because what happens next, right?
Well, I guess. I sort of guess. They don't know if the custom officer's gay. They've assumed that.
Yeah, that's the kind of piece of information they do leave out. It's like, was the customs guy gay?
But the thing is, like, they don't establish whether he is gay or not. They just say that Billy said that. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
like, that's all I can imagine. Because, like, he doesn't seem like... I mean, I know nobody would be thrilled at anyway, whether you're gay or not. No. But it's not like... He doesn't tell this story like this is something he does every day, right?
Right.
But Billy says to him, will you go down to the customs office and basically, like, suck the guy's cock to release the water? Now, look, I know there are places in the world where corruption in public officials is rampant.
Right.
I don't know if the Bahamas is one of those places. I wouldn't wish to slander the Bahamas. But this seems like a long shot to me.
Right. This is the Hail Mary. This is
right.
This is...
And then this guy proceeds to explain that, like, he thinks about it. He doesn't seem particularly impressed with the suggestion. This is why I wasn't sure. Like, I get it. Like, not every gay person instantly wants to perform every gay sex act, right?
Right.
But he talks about it like it's something he's never even remotely considered doing, I feel like.
Yeah, he's like, oh, and it was like,
I got some mouthwash.
With mouthwash. I'm like, why would you do that before? You know,
it's for that minty effect.
I was like, if you're gonna do that, like that seems like an after thing.
Well, if you're gonna try and release water, it's gonna have to be a good one, right? Like, so you're gonna need that tingle. You're going for that cooling, like refreshing effect, you know, like a novelty condom, you know?
Sure.
Yeah. And he basically says, so he goes this whole long story explaining, but when he gets down there, he's like, fortunately, this is my favorite bit. Like, he doesn't say if he'd made the offer before being told this. But he said the customs officer was happy to release the water to me because there are all these people going to need water. But he said, just make sure that when the money comes in, we get paid first. We get what we're owed first. And the bit that struck me is Billy didn't go, will you go down to the customs office and tell them there are a lot of guests here that really need some water? And if they release the water, we'll pay them first. Do you know what I mean?
Sinister Mr. Chess says, it's like, wait, what? Right. So exactly. Instead of going, hey, can you go down to the office and being like, plead with this guy, pull on some heartstrings a little bit.
And then just saying maybe like, do whatever you have to, like whatever, right? And leave that on the table.
Yeah. He was like,
will you go perform oral sex on a Bahamian customs official?
Can you go
whether he wants to or not?
Official,
like,
right? It's like, what? So, I think my favorite, another one of my favorite bits is the night before the festival starts, right? So the ponytail yoga guy, right, is telling the story about him. Him and a few of the others are standing on the porch, or the balcony of this house that they're using as their headquarters, and they're looking out on the ocean, and they know what is in store, right? They know the next day is going to be a nightmare because at this point, too much has gone wrong. They know they're nothing is set up right.
The best thing about it is it's not even a case of like, if you haven't seen this documentary, it's not even a case of like they're anticipating a hard day getting the festival going.
Right.
No one at this point, except for Billy McFarlane, is under any impression that this festival is going to happen.
Right.
And he doesn't. I don't even think Billy McFarlane's on board. Billy McFarlane's only pushing so hard at this stage because he has to pay people whether the festival goes ahead or not because he's signed some incredibly bad contracts.
So what happens is it starts to storm, right? It starts like torrential downpour storm. And the guy says, all we did was laugh. All we could do was just laugh. I'm like, I've been there. I've been in that position where everything has gone so wrong that you just laugh. Now, granted, I've never dealt with that kind of money and like that amount of like human life on my hands, but adjusting the stakes quite a bit. I've definitely been in situations where it's like, good. Yeah. So I fell for him there. I legit fell for that guy there. So yeah, needless to say, this festival just is a nightmare. All the bands. Well, actually, there's one guy who actually pulls off maybe after the pilot, right? This guy maybe does the smartest thing in this documentary, and he doesn't have a lot of time on the documentary because this guy was actually working for the app side of things, not the festival.
You talk about the guy who does like the sound engineering, that kind of guy?
No. There's a guy who they introduce briefly, and basically he says, we got this guy who worked on the app. He's going to do all the booking. And so they basically tap this guy who.
Oh yeah, and he just cancels all the bands.
Yeah, he's. I think his job was like a programmer. Like he's just a computer programmer, and they basically go, "Hey, we need you to book all the bands." Doesn't know anything about booking bands, so he overpays everyone.
I love that when he just goes, "Yeah, turns out I really overpaid them."
but he also pulls off probably the smartest move, right? So I think it's a day. It's a day before this festival goes out, and he starts hearing reports about what's happened. And so he takes it upon himself. He doesn't ask for permission, and basically calls up all the bands and goes, "Don't come." Don't. he does the one reasonable thing where he actually contacts the bands and goes, "Just don't."
Do you know?
Just don't.
Do you know who
Keep
else
the money,
I liked?
Don't come.
He doesn't have a huge part in the documentary. He's not one of the most colorful characters, but I quite liked the guy whose job it is to run the Fyre Festival social media accounts. and he has to send all the help queries and all the important information, like what are we gonna do about accommodation and stuff, just onto them, because his job is just to post ads.
Right.
And then right on the last day when it's all gone to hell and it's a massive PR mess, he's like, no, we need to take a strategy to come out on top of this and stuff. The next message he gets back from them is the name of their new PR.
Right.
He was great, I thought, because all he's doing is running a Twitter account and an Instagram account, you know?
Right.
I also liked the guy who started exposing it early on, you know?
Yeah.
The guy who figured out that they weren't on a private island.
So this all goes totally wrong. So, of course, everything's gone to hell. There's this great meeting, right? Where it's now Ja Rule's back, right? Because Ja Rule disappears. Ja Rule just like straight up fucking disappears through all of this.
He's there for all the fun stuff.
Yeah, he's there for all the fun stuff, but apparently has no part in nothing else, right? Which I'm actually kind of suspicious of, in a weird way. But there's this great meeting because Ja Rule is straight up the co-owner of this company. Like it's not. He
does a very good job of keeping his head down when things start to go wrong.
So there's this great board meeting, right, where everyone's like, "What the hell are we gonna do?" Right? And he's like, "Come on, this room is full of smart people. We can figure this out." I'm like, I don't care if you have a room full of fucking NASA scientists. You just stranded 500 rich people on an island.
The best thing about that bit is it's a real case of failing to read the room, because everyone else in that scene is looking for the nearest life raft out of this situation.
Right, we need to go. We need to get.
And he's like, "Come on, we need to band together. If we're all here in this together," and they're like fucking booking tickets.
Yeah, like there's one guy who straight up goes, "What are you talking about? This is fraud." And Ja Rule's response is, "No, it's not. This isn't fraud.
It's false advertising."
Yeah, and here's I'm watching this. I'm going, I bet he says false advertising. He goes, "This is false advertising." I'm like, I knew it. I knew he was going to say that shit. But he's just like, "What are you talking about? Of course this is fraud."
It's that bit when that guy finally says, because you can tell when he says it, no one said the F word yet.
Right. Yeah, no one wanted to, but he took it upon himself. He's like...
You can tell what brought it out was Ja Rule's attempt at positivity. Like, the insult of that was too much to bear.
Right, yeah, because Ja Rule just like, I mean, his response to this whole thing is straight up high school cheerleader pep rally. It's just, it looks like the Mighty Ducks, at halftime, where the team's down like a few goals, and Gordon Bombay is just like, "All right, guys, we gotta get together. We gotta show some heart. Remember, ducks fly together," right?
Yeah.
Ja Rule's trying to be that, and everyone's just looking at him like, "Shut the fuck up." Like, what are you talking about, you lunatic?
There's-
We're all going to jail.
There's a great story that sums it up at one point when things are getting really, really, really terrible, and everyone's talking about how positive Billy McFarlane was, and then they just go, every so often he would just leave the room, and get on like, what was it, like a quad bike, drive like a mile away, and then he would drive back and be like, all right, here's what we're gonna do.
Like, you know what that is, right? That's him driving a mile away, screaming into the darkness.
Right.
Coming back and going, okay.
It is an incredible documentary. And
Oh
we haven't even scratched the surface.
Oh my God. It just everything. Right? No, okay. Here's actually the weirdest thing, right? The weirdest thing that happens after this. Right? And this is something I want to touch on because I was really confused by this.
Okay.
After this all goes down, right? And Billy is being indicted. He hasn't been convicted yet, but he's basically the court proceedings have begun on something like 20 counts of fraud. He starts like this other weird business venture that just confused the living shit out of me, right?
Yeah, this is a really odd little epilogue.
Yeah, so they just kind of tack this on.
Selling fraudulent tickets for events you can't buy tickets for.
Right. And
like it's not even clever like the others were, or like it's not even a project. It just seems to be outright crime.
Yeah. And he's cool with everyone filming it. That's the other weird thing. Is that,
yeah, come on, get your cameras on. We're gonna film ourselves doing the crimes.
Right. And something that happens is, like, I don't know how he hoped like not to get caught, because he uses the mailing list of the Fyre Festival attendees.
Well, this is the point where it becomes very, very clear that whatever else Billy may be, he's not a genius.
No. He uses the email list of the Fyre Festival attendees and tries to start selling them these fake tickets. And like it takes like a day before the people who are on this mailing list go, "Hey, did you get a weird message from this guy named Frank?" Yeah, weird. And like they work it out in like a matter of a week what this guy's doing. It's like, really? Really, Billy? Oh, no, actually, here's actually my favorite, not my favorite bit, but one of my other favorite, like, little moments. But, so this festival's just gone to hell. And what also happens at the same time is that the locals of the island, they work it out. They're like, we're not going to get paid. So they basically try to mob and storm the headquarters to find Billy, who has disappeared at this point, right? He doesn't even stay through the whole thing.
An investor guy booked himself like secret passage off the island as well.
Yeah. So this nice guy who went down to the customs agent to blow the official, him, ponytail guy, and a few others are like, oh shit, Billy's gone. A few of the other guys are gone.
Yeah, we're gonna die.
We're gonna die.
Investor guy specifically says, right? I'm not proud of it. It was a matter of survival. But because everybody involved in Fyre Festival is so rich and sheltered, you don't know if it actually was that bad, or if he's just never seen like angry people before.
Angry people, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's just it's like watching a Rube Goldberg machine,
right?
In action,
but of failure.
Where the result is a pistol pointed at a kitten's head.
A Rube Goldberg machine where the entire point is that eventually every part will break,
right?
But still process onto the other.
Right. It's like every piece is rigged with a tiny explosive that after its purpose is done, it will explode. Right.
Right.
And
in the face of the person who began the Rube Goldberg machine.
Right. It's just
like it's his kitten.
Yeah. And once again, at the end, even though all these pieces have blown up, the result is this kitten gets his head blown off. Right. That's how horrific this series of events is. And I mean, like this documentary is just straight up the car crash effect. You know, where people like watching car wrecks.
I cannot lie. It's still funny to laugh at rich people.
It really is. And that's the thing too. Like, so when all the attendees start showing up, I'm in my heart of hearts, I'm thinking like, oh, these poor kids don't know what they're in for. Like, they don't know what they're in for. And then within like 15 seconds of them showing actual attendees on this island, I'm like, you fuckers deserve this. I'm like,
my favorite bit actually in the whole documentary.
You lose so much, like, any sort of positive feelings you have for these attendees just disappears in like of seconds.
My favorite bit actually about the documentary, the one perfect example that illustrates how they got themselves tied in knots, is the festival ends up hugely overbooked for what they can accommodate. Because they haven't, they can accommodate fuck all because they've planned it badly. So they've soon figured out they've got to uninvite some people, right? But they've got two types of guests coming. Those who have paid, and they've paid for a variety of different levels of quality, but they've paid. Right. And those who have not paid, but they were influencers early on in the process, and they get to go for free. And the guy who's supposed to organize the uninviting, what he wants to do is uninvite a lot of the people who've paid for the most expensive stuff, because once they get here, they're going to find out they don't have the villas, they cannot meet their promises. It would be best to uninvite these people. The influencers, however, they've already done the thing. They feel like they've paid too, and they're refusing to leave because they're coming for free. They really don't want to let go. They ain't getting you know what I mean? And they're also less likely to be rich in many cases. And so but Billy demands that they try and uninvite as many influencers as they can. But because they were coming for free and they hadn't paid, like basically a lot of them are basically saying, no, I'm coming. I will not give up my space. Right. So they managed to uninvite like nobody.
Oh, and then
because I should say Billy can't afford to let the paying guests uninvite them. That's the biggest thing.
And then so they go on this like weird campaign of like trying to get people to put more money into the festival by
oh yeah.
The RFID chips.
They basically it's like Disney dollars, isn't it? There's gonna be a currency once you get there where you can buy everything with these RFID bracelets, and they start sending out these mass emails. But the bracelets aren't even working, I think.
Right, because everyone's like, what are you doing? Like, these don't work. There's no infrastructure. Like, we're all running on like a 56K modem. Like,
oh yeah, because there's no internet in the Bahamas as well, by the way.
Well, on this island.
On this island, but yeah, where they are.
Oh my God, it's like because like I just started watching this. And you know the reason I started watching this? I was listening to the radio on the way home to a sports network. And one of the guys on the sports show just kind of goes off kind of hand, like real, like out of left field goes, oh yeah, did you watch that documentary about the Fyre Festival? And everyone kind of saying like, yeah, and the guy who learned how to fly with Microsoft. I'm like, oh, I want to see what this is about. It got so much better. It got so much better after that.
They're making a movie of this. They're making a movie about this series of events. No fictional representation of this could be as good as this is. Right. It might be the greatest documentary ever made. It might be the best film ever made. It is because it works on so many levels. First of all, it's got so much dramatic irony, right? Because you know right from the beginning exactly what's going to happen. And it is like the perfect farce. It's almost like Shakespeare. Gradually, characters become more and more aware of the inexorable conclusion into which they have been tied.
Right.
And that's fascinating to watch. And then you've got the fact that it really is legitimately enjoyable to watch rich people suffer. And then it goes through this whole huge cycle of emotions from like cringe to genuine sympathy to anger and to like, I wasn't joking when I said when they have to scramble for those tents, the documentary gets legitimately frightening.
Yeah.
There's a moment where a guy being interviewed says, in the middle of a night, a drunk girl stumbled crying into her tent, saying she was lost. She didn't know where to go or what to do or how to find her friends. And we couldn't do anything because we didn't know any of that stuff either.
Right. It's like, oh my God. It's just... And still, through all this, the biggest piece of shit is the guy who sliced up the mattresses and pissed on them.
My favorite thing about that whole story is, like, they didn't help themselves because while they were waiting because they weren't ready, they just got all the guests good and drunk.
Right. And that's almost the saddest thing, right? Like, I'm thinking about what was possibly going through these people's minds, right? So they land, and the first thing they do is they usher them all, like, everyone to this huge, must be a massive bar. Right? And so they go there, and so everyone's just getting trashed.
Oh, and they're
having a great time.
They're at a music festival, but they're playing music too loud for everybody. Like, they're playing it so loud, like everyone's literally like, it's too loud for them to process the guests. It's probably the point. That was probably the intention.
Yeah, but oh my God, I can think of it through my head. It's like watching those kids. Because it only lasts like a minute, right? Where they show all these kids like hanging on this dock. Yeah. Everyone's drinking, having a great time, laughing. It looks like those scenes from war movies where they know the enemy's about to storm into the city, but they all have. It's like it's like that scene from Saving Private Ryan, right? Where everyone's hanging around in that French town, telling their stories.
Or like the night before they ship out.
Right. And everyone's just having a great time. But because we, as the viewers, know how this ends up, all you can think is like, oh, you guys are fucked. You don't know what's coming. Like,
and the best bit is like on the other end, when everyone suddenly starts to leave, every plane on the island is completely booked.
That's my favorite part, right? So this Billy guy made all these promises about what these people are going to get, and one of the promises he makes is, yeah, you'll fly into the island on a luxury jetliner,
private plane
a private plane. So they must have realized like 3 days out that they didn't have this fucking jet. So they buy this like dilapidated.
Oh, the one the guy manages to remove the window from.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it?
They get this piece of shit fucking plane, right? And they like slap a stencil on the side of it that says Fyre, you know?
It's great. And that girl's like, this is like flying sub coach.
Right. And it's that moment I'm like, oh, well, there goes all my sympathy.
It's great. It you know, I it's so worth seeing.
Oh, it really is. Because we might have talked about a lot of points, but unless you see all these events play out in succession, like you do when you watch the documentary, you don't get the full effect. Like,
yeah, it's exceptional.
Oh my God!
And thank God for people who realized there was a documentary there. Mm-hmm. It's also one of those other things, like, you know how there's that terrible story of like Chris Chan, who's the autistic kid who's been trolled by Encyclopedia Dramatica for like 10 years now. Mm-hmm. They catalog like everything he does, but it isn't helped by the fact that almost every personal information they know about him, like, he gave them in videos, because he just doesn't have a good sense of what to keep quiet. Everything incriminating in this documentary comes from them.
Right. And that's the funny thing too. It's like, so while you're watching these stories and you're listening to these guys tell like how this happened and what happened, you never kind of shake the feeling of like rats scurrying off the burning ship. You know what I mean? Like everything about this documentary feels like these guys going, "Oh yeah, this went horribly wrong," but I told them not to.
Yeah.
Like, you really get this sense of like everyone who's participating in this documentary is desperately trying to save their own ass and limit their involvement, but they also kind of want to be involved because they recognize like the history.
Yeah.
Like it's so strange. And the ending, that was the weirdest thing. Like that phone call. Remember that?
Remind me. I don't remember that.
So it's the guy, it's basically like the Bahamian contractor. The guy that they had hired to like hire all the people.
Oh yeah.
It's at the beginning. So he's been, so through this whole documentary, he's been explaining like how his role was to hire all the people to do all the grunt work, essentially. And so none of those people get paid because he never got paid. So you're thinking like, okay, clearly this guy is going to be pissed. He's going to be thoroughly, thoroughly pissed off at Billy. Has no reason to anything. So the strangest thing happens. He gets a phone call in the middle of his interview. And he looks and goes, "Oh, it's Billy." And so of course the filmmaker goes, "Oh yeah, answer it." And he answers it. He goes, "Oh yeah, Billy, I'm on camera right now. How's it going? Do you want me to say something nice about you? Okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye."
It is a strange moment. You're right.
And it's like, what? I think what they're trying to do is play up the idea that even though Billy did all this stuff, like he's such a weirdly charismatic person that people are still like nice to him. Because I'd hate the guy if I was in any of their positions. I'd want him dead. I would want his head on a pike. And and oddly enough, people still have these weirdly nice things to say about Billy through the whole thing. And
I have to say, that's very believable to me because I've known people like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? People who...
Well, it's like that cultish personality, right?
Right. People who are under the surface not good people. Because the thing about Billy that I think I took away from this was, and I think the documentary did really well by framing early on that question of whether or not he thought he was going to go to jail. Right at the beginning. So every time you hear him, you know that's a question you've got to ask. Does he deserve to go to jail?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I'm not going to answer whether he does or not. Like, I don't... Maybe not for the Fyre Festival thing, but maybe for the other stuff. But...
Oh, I think he absolutely could. He should go to jail.
I'm just saying I'm not getting into that necessarily because I think that's more of a legal issue. But
yeah.
I think what comes through really clearly if you watch this documentary is Billy's not a good person.
No,
he's not.
He's really not.
He's not ambitious or kind or anything like that because he wants to do good things. He's not even self-motivated in a way where it doesn't hurt people. It's only his own sort of life it's impacting. Mm-hmm. He seems to be crooked. Mm-hmm. And if he was as crooked as he is towards the end, when it's already a worry of going to jail, I guarantee he was crooked before. Do you know what I mean?
Right. And then the weird thing is so as a bit of foreshadowing, me and Owen have been kind of inundated lately with the topic of objectivism. You couldn't Billy doesn't even fit that category because he's not even trying to do this fake reaping my own work sort of thing. He's not even trying to reap the fruits of his own labor, right? All he wants, and it's clear this is all he wants, is the lifestyle of someone who has made it.
Right.
Right? Without actually having to have made it.
Well, you can see that right from the beginning when the promotion that they're doing at the beginning seems to be more about them enjoying the day of making that advert than the advert end result. To the point where there's a point where they explicitly state the models don't even know why they're there. And they've come to work. And yet they're confused that they seem to be there to party.
Oh,
you know?
And how sad was that watching Ja Rule try to convince these girls like to jump in the water right now. It's gonna be great. It's for a shoot. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah. I think what really came through to me is Billy is one of those people who is very good at convincing other people he's nice, but to me was apparently not nice. Like, obviously not a good person, you know?
Right.
And I honestly think, not to get too class war on you, I think being rich blinds you to stuff like that a little bit. Because if you're already primed to believe that everybody else who's rich deserves to be rich, you don't look at people you don't look at people's achievements with the same level of cynicism you should. Do you know what I mean? Right.
And I think there's something lacking, right? Because like I do think that to a certain degree being rich does, of course, change your outlook, and I don't even think that's necessarily like a bad thing, right? No. That's just the nature of things.
And I don't think all rich people are bad people. I think Billy's just a very good example of a bad rich person.
But like Billy also lives in this weird deluded world, right? Because here's the thing about Billy, right? And it's like, because you keep on calling him a rich person. I don't even think he is rich.
No.
Right?
No, I know what you mean.
Billy is not rich. What Billy is he, like we keep on saying, is that he's charismatic. So what he manages to do, he starts securing huge amounts of money that he uses really stupidly.
Yeah.
Because he believes that because people have given him this money, it is his. He fails to understand that all that money given to him was under the what's the word I'm looking for? It was supposed to be used for something, and it was given to him specifically to serve that purpose. And he fails to understand that. And he believes himself to be rich because he possesses it, not understanding that, no, you don't actually have that money.
Actually, it's really interesting. Louis Theroux used to do these series of documentaries about people. It's called Weird Weekends, where he would go and he would interview people who belonged to, not necessarily like cults, but he would interview people, for example, who believed that they were tracking UFOs, or like survivalists in the middle of the American country. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
He would interview these unusual groups. And he did one about people who subscribe to I Will Make You a Millionaire courses and things like that.
Right.
And how there's this whole climate of people who, one person's getting rich from selling courses that will make you a millionaire, but all the information in their courses is things like, if you believe you are a millionaire and you live the lifestyle, you'll be this super successful entrepreneur, you know? But the first guy's making his riches on selling the dream to other people, not on any other stuff he's selling, you know? And that was a really fascinating one about exactly that kind of mindset, this kind of, this very fleeting, foundationless interpretation of wealth, you know?
Right. Right, because here's the weird thing, right? And this is something I generally give people who are legit rich, like because there's different levels of rich, right? There's the rich of, like, I'm a soccer player, I am a basketball player, and so you get paid that contract, which is massive amounts of money. But you also see how quickly that money tends to disappear, right? Because it's a paycheck.
That's a working person with a lot of money.
Right.
Compared to someone like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, who have huge assets beyond even the ability to conceive of how much money they have.
And the weird thing is that the people who...
And then there's someone like Trump, who's just working class, but with a big building.
Right. um, people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, and to a certain extent, like Steve Jobs before he passed.
Right.
What's his name? Something Slim down in Mexico.
I have no idea.
He's technically, like, I think, the richest person in the world now. Once you convert and all that. Anyways,
the Walmart guy. I forgot what his name is, but him.
Walton, Sam Walton. These people actually, in a weird way, understand the value of money far better than most people. And I genuinely give them credit for that.
Right. I mean, like a really simple illustration, the vast majority of people don't have any savings in stocks and shares, right?
Right.
And you should. Like, it's a really simple piece of advice, but the vast majority of people never get to that level of financial literacy, you know?
Right. And okay, and for instance, like, okay, Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs, stuff like that. These are the guys who will most likely, even though they could buy 100 of them and probably still be financially fine, none of them are buying Maseratis. None of them are purchasing, fucking trying to throw private island festivals,
Right.
It's because they understand that the value of their money is not what they can spend.
Right.
It's what they can invest.
I'm sure Bill Gates has a really great, fantastic house that he lives in.
Yeah, sure.
But that's something you can live in. You feel the benefit of that every day as a person who owns an amazing house, if you can afford to maintain it. Which is why, for example, people who win the lottery buy ridiculous mansions that they can afford to buy, but not afford to run.
Right.
And then they lose all their money. But yeah, no, I think absolutely. And then if you look at Bill Gates now, I mean, so there's a really great podcast that looks at the Bill Gates Foundation, and it does a really great hatchet job, is probably the right way to put it, but a good one on the fact that Bill Gates is basically financing a lot of causes that are, in essence, free market political, and holding money back from people ideologically, not because he thinks he's doing bad and he desperately wants to change those countries, but because he himself comes from a position of ideology. But that's sort of irrelevant to my point, which is Bill Gates is getting all kind of spendy now, but on these massive social causes, you know what I mean?
Right.
Where he doesn't expect money to return directly.
Right. And the weird thing is that I remember reading this thing, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, and I've read this article where Bill Gates right now has this strange, one of the most unique problems that has ever existed in humankind, in human history, is that he literally can't spend his money fast enough.
Well, I would look into some of this stuff, though, because one of the things I was listening to was that they were talking about this idea of billionaires giving away their money is fundamentally a little untrue. Because Bill Gates could give away all his money in one chunk, right?
Right.
But he actually doesn't do that. He gives away large quantities of his money in the form of charitable foundations, but he actually has them quite largely invested anyway, so it's still giving him way more money. So it's not just a matter of can't. The actual idea that he's giving away his money at all is kind of a myth. Because he could give it all away instantly if he wanted. But he doesn't want to. He wants to keep accumulating money under the guise of giving more of it away. But giving it all away is not necessarily the main function of how he's using his money.
Right. Well, I mean, you also run into the issue, though, because, like, I can kind of see where he's coming from on that, in that sort of sense, is that, oddly enough, once you have, especially in America, once you have a sizable amount of money, it compounds.
Yes.
It's a situation where you can continually double up, triple up your money if you invest it in the right places
and just do
the
nothing.
Right banks and
well,
so in the long run, he can actually do more by not giving it all away.
Right. So sure, Sure, but I think it's also worth mentioning that
I mean, I don't think Bill Gates is the most altruistic person in the world. Don't get me wrong. I think
no, and I think looking into what Bill Gates does is valid. I mention this only because we're on the subject of Bill Gates, and I don't think it should go unmentioned.
Right.
I also think there's a question. I myself am a socialist, which I very frequently have to remind people doesn't mean I think we should be seizing all the corner shops from and taking them into the hands of the state. But I do think there's a serious question to be asked, which is should a society exist where someone can become as rich as Bill Gates? I think that is a valid question.
And it's and my viewpoint on that has always been, I would consider myself a socialist up to a point where I think there definitely needs to be a better focus on providing for the most people the best that you can, right? But I feel like that should be at the state level, right? That should be at the government level. The government's focus should be ultimately to not prop up billionaires and rich people, but instead provide for the most people possible, right?
Right.
It's a utilitarian approach. Now, in terms of wealth, I generally don't have a problem with anyone amassing any amount of wealth, assuming, okay, that no one was harmed in the way. They never did it by hurting people, and that the workers, because generally there are workers involved. Sorry, you probably hear my phone ring, but but as long as the people underneath were not trampled upon, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like because, I have no problem with the hierarchy.
There's no such thing as a self-made billionaire, really.
Right.
It's not functional. So, that's I suppose that's my issue with it a little bit. I personally, I think there's a good case to be made that level of wealth is it's an extreme aberration. It's not particularly common, but the problem is that level of wealth comes with an aberrant level of influence as well that is in itself destructive. But
sure.
I myself am also not inherently opposed to the idea that someone can accumulate a large amount of money, right? Even Bill Gates' level of money. I just think that along the line, there needs to be... Well, okay, so I guess my situation is not so much that I think... If someone's got as much money as Bill Gates, I don't think the government should be coming and taking it away from them beyond a reasonable, well-thought-out taxation policy, right?
Right.
But I also think that if we had a more appropriate set of regulations on industry and things all the way along down the line for the previous 40 years, Bill Gates wouldn't have become that wealthy.
Sure,
so
exactly.
You could take that as an attack on wealth.
Right, and I don't disagree with you on that. What I mean is, there are people, and don't get me wrong, I don't think that they are many, but there are certain people who will straight up just say, regardless of how or why or how honestly someone has reached a certain level of wealth, that they should not have that, right?
It depends on what you're talking about. I read a really good article that was talking about, do you remember when was it Amazon or Google? One of those Google executives took his stupid luxury yacht into the tropics and destroyed that coral reef? There was a really good article that said, and when I say yacht, this thing was bigger than a cruise ship, right?
Right.
There was a really good article that said, there's no reason for a private individual to own and operate a ship that big. Nobody needs to own one, and it causes damage. Now, I think that's more like... that should come more under a nautical equivalent of a traffic law. Do you know what I mean?
Right. I mean, and I view that as... I absolutely think that once you have a vessel that size, the regulations and the laws you need to follow need to change, but I don't have an issue with you owning it.
I suppose what I would say is, so here's the thing. Is there a way to own a vessel like that? But then this is a different definition of wealth, I understand, because we're not talking about financials, but is there a way to own a vessel that size and dock it and operate it and run it that at some level will not unduly affect other people? Do you know what I mean? But that's more of a pragmatic conversation.
I guess, like, for me, it's a case of, okay, for that specific situation, right? It's going to be a case of, I mean, it's the same way when it comes on like owning a fighter jet. You can do it. You can own a fighter jet.
You can't necessarily fly it.
Right. I mean, you can fly, but you have to now basically subject yourself to all the laws, regulations, and everything that like the military has to follow. Any commercial airliner
and
now
more
has to
so
follow.
because you're a private individual who hasn't had the same training.
Right. Yeah, and you have nowhere else to push off the liability if you have done something, right?
No, I think we're basically on the same page. So I consider myself to be a very left-wing socialist, but my personal opinion is that outright redistribution of existing property is not necessary beyond more aggressive taxes.
Right. Like
I'm in favor of very aggressive taxes, personally.
Oh yes, I agree. I am in favor of because my viewpoint is like I mean, it would require like a 100% unreasonable taxation rate to tax someone out of wealth, right?
Yeah.
And
of course, most taxes are marginal, so they only affect ever decreasing slices. So I mean, it's yeah, and so my opinion is that you can do everything socialism needs to do with very aggressive taxes and decent regulation on what people do with their wealth. That's fair, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I think we're basically on the same page.
Yeah.
But no, I totally agree. There are the people who like the like anarchist socialists who want to take all the. I never really get that though. People who are like anarchists but also want to seize property, because if you're in favor of like anarchism, you don't also get to say, and the state should take someone's property away. Like, how do you do that? It doesn't function.
I mean, the issue with that standpoint is usually naivety. It's the idea of like we're gonna. I mean, it is essentially the same problem that Billy, to bring it back, has. Right? A lot of these like anarchists think that okay, we can seize all this money and this property, and then we'll gather all the poor up into the city square, and then I'll throw out bags of money to everyone, and now all the problems are solved. It's like, no, that's not how you do that. Like, that doesn't actually solve a problem.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, so I've recently been getting into the concept of prison abolitionism, and prison abolitionism is the idea that fundamentally prison in itself is a fundamentally flawed concept that doesn't actually serve the purpose of rehabilitation of crime, right? And that what it actually serves is a purpose of, like, vengeance and punishment. Do you know what I mean? Which is not to say there is never a cause for confinement, right? If you've got someone who keeps killing people, and no matter what you do, will never stop killing people, you know?
Real quick before you go on a long tangent, I know what you're getting at.
Yeah, sure.
I've heard it. But Sinister Minister just says real quick, I will pay school taxes all my life. I never had children, and I don't want to deal with your dumb kids. Exactly. Like,
right.
That's kind of the idea, is that even though it's not something that like directly affects you, there are things that taxes and I think an aggressive taxation policy would cover will inevitably cycle around to benefit you.
Amazon,
you know what I mean?
Amazon skips taxes, but its delivery trucks that send its packages out drive on the roads that are funded by taxes. So it doesn't exist in a bubble. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so prison abolition is something that's recently become very interesting to me. It's just something I've been reading about. The idea that fundamentally, in a really, really basic level, prisons don't work, and we as a society should be moving to more of a restorative justice and mental health approach to crime. And I happen to have a lot of sympathy for that point of view. The disappointing thing is, most of the people who believe in prison abolition believe in it from an anarchist perspective, where what they want to replace it with is people basically all operating their own vigilante systems, dealing with crime through their own ways.
Right.
And that to me is nonsense. Like, I don't want to... I'd love to live in a society where more people got counseling than prison, right? And observation if they needed it. I don't want to live in a society where everyone has to take crime into their own hands. Right,
and the sad thing is what that leads to is this really horrific situation. And some people would probably say, "Oh, that's a far-fetched idea," and I don't think it is. But if you let everyone handle crime in their own way, what you will inevitably get is people who have the means and the ability and the funds to establish their own prison system.
Right.
And if there's no one to regulate how they handle crime, they can essentially keep making their own city state.
And then you also end up in other situations like, what if you're a... Okay, I'll say this because I say it pretty described to me. What if you're like a weak guy? Like, I'm a small guy. I don't fight. I've never been confrontational. I've never been aggressive. I've only been in like 2 fights in my entire life, and they petered out. I'm just not that guy, right? Mm-hmm. So what do I do in this society if I'm a victim to a crime? What's my recourse?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's nonsense. But they've got a lot of good, sensible things about, okay, we can see prisons have issues and they don't work that well, and great, but their solution is infinitely worse than prisons, right?
Right. I mean, like, I guess I understand how they get conflated with each other, but I don't necessarily believe that the prison system or a rehabilitative system is equal to the law. You know what I mean? Like, the law is, in my view, a law is either a yes or no situation. It's binary. Right.
Yeah.
Have you followed the law? Yes or no? You know,
you could abolish all prisons tomorrow and keep all laws except those related to prisons the same.
Right.
And sentencing.
Right. So it's like you can abolish prison system, or you can drastically change it, but you do not suddenly become lawless.
Right. I mean, you could decide tomorrow to turn all prisons into hospitals and keep everything else the same, and all you would do is change the purpose of the prisons. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not saying that would be any better, because I don't think all prisoners should be in hospitals either. You know. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those areas where, like, anarchism, I think, I don't get anarchists. I don't want to live in an anarchist society. No. I think anarchists get caught up on this one point, which is that fundamentally the state operates by consent of the people. Mm. And they decide that means, okay, there's an option for no state. I don't think humans work like that, really.
I mean, oddly enough, I see... this is going to sound really... I mean, I don't think I'm necessarily wrong either, but I see a lot of similarities between libertarians and anarchists.
Oh, I agree. I
remember there's this thing that a buddy of mine, who I don't even know where he stands anymore, but at the time he was very big on the libertarian front. And he sent me this podcast I listened to where this neighborhood was having issues with crime, specifically like this like block of apartment like complexes. I don't know if there was like state housing or what, but it was basically a long or a big section of tenant buildings. And they're having issues with crime, and the police department at the time was just really not doing anything about it. They weren't sending patrol officers there and whatnot. So what ended up happening is that they ended up hiring on essentially a private police force for this area that worked directly with the actual police department and was kind of given a sort of deputization,
right,
to operate. And my buddy sent me this saying like, "Oh, how awesome is this? Like, how cool is this? This is such a great solution to the problem." I'm like, "No, that's horrifying to me." And he's like, "Why is that horrifying?" I'm like, "Because what that basically means is that anyone who has enough money to buy a police force can enforce the laws they want,
right,
within an area. Like, you want to talk about a class divide or a income divide. If you're wealthy enough, you can now essentially hire your own police force to continually oppress groups of people. Like, that's horrifying to me. Like,
yeah.
But that is essentially, to me, that's anarchism, because you're operating outside of the scope of the law because the law is supposed to apply to everyone equally. Yes, we know realistically does it? No. But that's the idea. And you have removed yourself from that equation by buying your own police.
Right.
Like, that's still lawlessness, but you're paying for it.
Right. And so much of libertarianism does lean into this. I know it's my favorite example, but Michael Shermer, the guy from the Skeptic Society, who likes to say that, you know, you could get rid of things like food standards, food safety, and stuff like that, because, hey, if you buy some food and it's bad, you just don't buy from there again.
Except earlier last year here in the United States, we had this horrific outbreak of E. coli in romaine lettuce.
And I guess what he would say is, but look, we had the food standards people and it still happened.
Yeah, like, except they caught it and they shut it down.
And how many poisoning cases in food are there now compared to 200 years ago? You know, it's such insanity. You need organization like that. And I guess what people want is, the weird future they seem to believe in is, well, we don't want to have a state with power. We want it to all be done with consent. But you kind of do consent. You know what I mean? Like, it's the problem with anarchism and libertarianism and all this stuff like that is, it gets an intelligent point, which is the first time you realize as like a kid, oh yeah, countries aren't a thing that has to exist, and states and governments aren't a thing that has to exist. They're all just humans like us, right? They're not these institutions sent down from the heavens. They're things we have built over time. And it's like the first time you go, well, you know, if something wasn't illegal, it wouldn't be a crime. You know what I mean? Like, you solve all crime by getting rid of all laws. These are the kind of things you think when you're like 12.
Yeah. That's the thing that you say to the girl you like when you're 15 and try to make her think that you're way deeper than you really are.
Right. And what they never get to, they never get past that for me. They never get past that initial awe of going, wow, this clever thing I just thought of.
And the problem is, especially like with libertarianism and anarchism, which, like I said, I think libertarianism is just anarchism with a suit and tie.
Well, it's sort of anarchism light. They still want a state to exist, but just for like the few things.
But they had this whole idea about having the ability to choose and consent, and what they almost always fail to recognize is that if you are allowed to basically do whatever the hell you want and let the markets solve themselves and all this sort of nonsense, you are effectively removing choice from other people along the way. Right. It's like anti-vaxxers. Like, it's my choice not to vaccinate my child. Well, you've just removed the choice for someone else to be safe from that disease.
Right. It's like when libertarians talk about freedom, what they only mean one kind of freedom from state intervention. They don't think about freedom from disease, you know? Right. Like, all those people who want to be free from taxes to pay for universal health care are taking away someone else's freedom from medical bills. Right. And they don't see it as a balancing act between freedoms. They just see the one freedom they want as more important than everybody else's freedom from other things that then they don't worry about.
Right. And like I said, like libertarian is essentially a philosophy that is championed by the rich and followed by the people who think they are, you know? Yeah.
Well, I mean, the pre-rich, you know, who was it that said, someone famously said that most Americans don't see themselves as poor, they see themselves as temporarily embarrassed millionaires.
Right. Yeah. I think that was Steinbeck.
I believe so. It wasn't, I should just clarify, by the way, that's the quote, which is why I said Americans. It is the same in a lot of places.
Right. Yeah, because is it temporarily embarrassed millionaires? I thought it was something along the lines of eventual millionaires.
It's something like, I think it's, I've definitely heard the version with temporarily embarrassed.
Yeah. So, well, I think we need to start wrapping up here.
Let's do it.
All right.
You want to see us
Thank
out,
you,
Jonathan?
Yeah. Thank you all for watching. This has been a fun episode. We had a lot of good times, and once again, stay tuned because in a few weeks we're not going to put an exact time on it, but in a few weeks we should have something new for you guys, a new project.
All I will tell you is if it takes ages, don't blame me. I'm ready to go whenever. It's Jonathan over there.
Oh, hello, 21 cries for help just in time. Yeah, so, okay, just back on the topic real quick. System Interest says middle class. Every American thinks they're middle class. Exactly. No one in America wants to believe that they are actually in the poverty zone. Everyone thinks that either they are rich or in this mythical middle class state that somehow encompasses like 4 other economic statuses. But no, absolutely right. Mr. is absolutely right about that. But yeah, no, we're wrapping up here. So yeah, keep an eye out for a new project coming soon. I've been Jonathan Kadat. With me, as always, has been Owen. Owen, where can they find you?
You can go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Owen Adams.
Awesome. And you can follow me on Twitter, which is @JohnCPerson, or you can go down to Twitch and go to twitch.tv/JCRizzle12. And you can find some of my live streams there that I do periodically. Or you just keep following this channel right here. It's a good time. So yeah, until next time, have a good one.
Bye-bye!